Hello, welcome back to Higher Density Living. You are here with Jason Rigby and Alexander McKegg. If you're a first-time listener, good for you. You're doing the right thing. And if you're not, you're a regular, you know what to expect.
And they're going to last about content. 4 minutes and 32 seconds in the show. Yeah. And then they're like, what the hell is this shit?
What is going on? It's time for me to leave.
Yeah, we start talking about alien and underground water bases. And we do need to do a new conspiracy one here. We did one.
We did one the other day, moon bases.
Yeah, we did one the other day. Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
We did alien genetics and then moon bases.
Yeah.
Do you know, we want to talk about moments of weakness today, huh?
Yeah, I want to take it more of a macro.
Well, let's start micro with me.
Oh, this is funny.
So I'm up on.
You're going to talk about a moment of weakness?
I'll talk about I guess I would call
this
it
is a physical moment of weakness?
Yeah, but both. It's both. I'm about 50 feet up on a limestone slab yesterday, and you got to clear a route when you're going up rock climbing when you're done.
Right.
All right. So up at the top, you have these two bolts that are going into the rock, and from that hangs like these rusty old looking chains. Now, when you're up there, you have to anchor in. So that means I'm bringing other clips, carabiners, and stuff to actually send it into these things that are bolted into the rock.
Right.
Now, when I do that, though, I have to untie my rope so that I can pass it back through, so that I can go down and bring my gear with me. So I essentially am belaying or rappelling down off of the gear that was in the rocks rather than taking it and rather than being on my own gear. Otherwise, I'd have to leave it up there. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So I'm up there. I've never rappelled before, ever. And I got a 5-minute crash course. I tried to pay attention as well as possible. And as I'm up there, I get to the point where like, okay, I'm bolted in.
Did you have your hand behind your back?
My hand behind my back?
Yeah, no, I mean, were you holding the rope like
when I was rappelling, yeah.
Because that's what screws people up.
Yeah, so, and I'll get to that in a second. So, I'm up there. I have both of my, safety pieces, my anchors actually set in. I've removed the gear that was up there that we were using, these two opposite opposed quick draws, that the ropes were running through. And then I do have my, figure 8 knot going through my harness. But what I have to do now is I'm going to have to untie that. Now, if I drop it, I'm pretty much fucked. Can't get a rope back up to me. I'm stuck up there. Okay?
There should be like a better way.
So here's how this works. You tie a bight in the knot, and as a sub part of the system, you're going to lock and carabiner that onto a separate part of the harness. So that if you do drop it, it would catch it. All right. But you do also have to take the bite of that knot and not drop it while you're doing it. But there is a point when that has to become untied. So that's gone through. I've pulled it through, strung it through. And I'm like, okay, I'm up here. I'm untied. I didn't drop this fucking rope. And now I'm going to tie it back into myself. And I am going to then set in my rappel device. And I got to make sure I take my weight. And let me tell you something. You are like 1 foot away from these things that are sitting in front of your face. They're like right here. Mm-hmm. And death is legitimately just sitting beneath you. And no one's up there to double check your work. And I had to think to myself, do I need to sit here and be fearful and fuck this up and fumble and not look at the system and not do my double checks, triple, quadruple checks, whatever it is? Or am I going to sit here in a panic because I've never done this before, drop this rope and be screwed and I'm stuck up here all day waiting for hopefully some search and rescue squad, right? So I was like, okay, just relax for 2 seconds. Check your system 5 times. I took my weight off. I'm like, all right, pretty good. Set it back. Rappel devices in. I got to tell you, the moment I put my hand on the carabiner, that was essentially my safety net to take them off of the anchors, it was a very sketchy moment.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Okay? Yeah. Because at that point, nothing's holding you in but the hand that sits on this rappel device.
Right.
And if I let go of that, if I don't have the right strength, if I don't understand the tension, I didn't even understand the tension of what it was like to rappel down. But I'm doing it already from 50 feet up on the slab. So I put my hand in, and then, when you're first making that move down and you're like, okay, it's fucking go time here, and you start to let the rope like start to slide through.
There's a trust thing there, yeah.
Yeah, and what I realized, it wasn't so much about the bolts that were in front of me, the external part of the world. It was that, did I trust myself enough in all my capabilities, who I am, paying attention, all the things I've learned over my life, and the ability to keep myself alive, that I can actually get down off of this wall. And it was very uncomfortable. It was extremely uncomfortable. And I don't think I ever want that situation to feel comfortable, because then I think I'll get lazy. But I got to say that was my little moment of weakness, but I realized it had nothing to do with the rusty old bolts in front of me or all this other stuff or the ropes, nothing. It actually had to do with me.
Well, don't you think it's always that way? I mean, every situation we face, it's always you.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
I wanted to be like, you call me up here, I got to clean the route for everybody else. I can like blame it on everybody, or like,
victim mentality.
I don't have the right gear. This rope's too big. It's not working. I'm up here fumbling, trying to get this fat carabiner through this tiny piece of chain. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, just slow down.
I always, like with something like that, that one guy I watched on Joe Rogan, the Alex guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like top climber in the world, one of the top climbers in the world, I would imagine. And I always think of, if he was in my shoes right now, how easily would he do this?
Right.
You know what I mean? So obviously all it is just a matter of putting in the time and the effort.
It takes time, but also the realization on a lot of facts that some things actually deserve a legitimate sense of, fearful risk.
Now, can you practice that in the safety?
Yeah.
How would you can you practice
you
those
can practice it like 10 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Except I'm practicing at the height where I die.
Yeah,
below me is in the crag. It's just all these exposed rocks and ice, and they're all at different angles. So I mean, if I fall, that's it.
You're done. Yeah.
Right. But it's just like in those moments, and then I think about, I'm like, it's all good. Everything's fucking good.
Well, you would hate. I think the whole idea is also people get paralyzed because they are afraid of making a mistake.
That's correct. And I told myself, I was like, listen, if I'm afraid to make a mistake, let's be rational about this. Take my weight off. All right? Leave the anchors in, take my weight off. Okay, is that working? Check that 5 more times. Don't freeze up. Just keep checking that system 5 more times. All right, that works. Take one carabiner off. Take one of my anchors off. Check the weight. Do it 5 more times. That still works. Okay. Is the rappel device ready to go? Yeah, it is. And when I take that last one off, that's when it's go time. I've seen it. I've checked it multiple times. I've seen it. Checked the tensions, everything. It's all there. Let's go.
Yeah, I had. I was rappelling off this wall in the Marine Corps. We were doing infantry training, and the guy was yelling at me up at the top. They had instructor, and because they want you pressure. Mm-hmm. If you had a drill instructor and you were scared, and then he was yelling at you while you're on the wall, that's even better.
My pressure's death.
Yeah.
You guys will fall in a sand pit.
No. We were way up high. We were like 200, 250 feet.
Oh, you guys are up there.
Yeah. So this was the whole idea, because we had to do it all the time when we did spy rigging and stuff. You hang off the helicopter with the big rope.
Right.
So rappelling was like, for me, once I got the hang of it, it was easy. But the first time I did it, we just had a harness on, and then you just have a rope, and you kind of do the knot to your harness, really basic. Yeah. Because it's quick, like in and out. And so when I put my the rope in your hand behind you like this, yeah, I didn't have my footing, and they had the guy up there went ahead and had another guy start to come down because he thought I was hesitating. So I ended up flipping.
Oh, not good.
Yeah, so my head was down.
Yeah, not good when you invert.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot.
I was like, oh, okay. So then you're in the back. So then you look down, and then there's like, because it's in California.
Yeah.
So you look down, and there's like all the the pine trees, and they're like this. It's just a really freaky.
It's when you think about
a bird flies by you.
Yeah, when you think about the human body, like I'm up there and there's bats. Like I have bats like sleep. I'm putting my hands in there and stuff like that. Yeah, and they're like moving around. The shit sleeps in rocks. I don't think people know that.
Yeah,
but a little COVID up there, Wuhan. You don't realize that the body's fragile. We want to think our bodies are tough. They're very fragile.
Dude, we're skinless.
No,
we're furless.
And when you see people doing certain things, it's like there's no thought about the body anymore. It's just that the mind is gotten to a place where risk thinks it's invincible, but it lacks the recognition that the body is still fragile. And what I realize is that when I'm up there, I know my body's fragile. I know I would die at this height, whether it's 50 feet, 200 feet, or 1,000 feet up. I'm going to die regardless. And then from that, it's like, if I realize the body's weak, I don't want to match that with something that's weak in the mind, because I've essentially doubled the power of that weakness.
Right.
I need to have that strength in my mind to have the realization that this is where the material sense of my body is.
Mm-hmm.
This is how much strength it has. It has a maximum. But in my mind, I can equalize all that fear that I might be feeling, right? All that adrenaline that's pumping through me at that moment, it has to be equalized with my thoughts in that moment. There's no one there to hold my hand, pat me on the back, dump me with oxytocin.
Well, it's funny, and we'll get into my situation here in a little bit, but it's funny because, and this is something I was thinking is, everything around you is agnostic.
Completely.
So it's just you perceiving
That's right.
the situation that you're in and then putting emotion to that perception.
That's exactly correct. And I'm up there and I'm staring at limestone. I have my face.
But how long has the limestone been there?
Dude, forever.
It doesn't care if you climb it or not.
It doesn't care if I die
The
in front
bats
of
are going to get
It doesn't
disturbed.
care if I die in front
No.
of it either. So it's like, I'm up here. I've chosen this risk. It's like, just go through it. This is what you're doing.
But how'd you feel afterwards? Amazing.
I felt
right?
good, yeah.
Because you accomplished something. And
something was learned. I kept myself alive, right? And, now I can do it again.
you're,
as simple as that.
You're here to live another day.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the crazy part. So, the title of this podcast was "Do the Work to Think."
Okay.
So this is kind of what I wanted to get into with this.
Do the work to think. That actually matches perfect with what I did yesterday.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with me. I kind of had, and I know a lot of people's had this before. I had a weak moment where I was getting extremely frustrated. Didn't sleep for a few days. I'll just make mine really quick. Didn't sleep for a few days, and then decided to have a pity party, which is what that is. Which I want people, when you had the fear and you're on the rock, or I'm having a pity party and want to, write out a resignation letter or whatever, whatever it is. I wrote out a long email to my mom, and so all this stuff. Whenever you're in that weak moment, acceptance is really important, because I kept fighting it.
Yeah.
And then that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to start getting, like, if you started fighting the fear, then you're like, oh, fuck, am I doing this right? Oh, fuck. Okay, don't be afraid, Jason. And then you just start working yourself up.
This is how I dealt with it. I looked around, I'm up there, and I'm like, before I had untied that knot, I'm like, this is fucked. That's what I said.
Yeah.
In a completely observational manner, I said, this is really fucked.
Right.
This is like a fucked up situation. Like, this is how this is done every time. It like blew my mind. I'm like, this is crazy. But I said, okay, if it's this fucked up and everybody's doing this fucked up thing, but it's guaranteed to work through the American Mountain Guide Association, then I'm going to do it. All right. And we're going to live to tell the tale. Right. And there's no pity up there. Who are you going to feel sorry for?
I know exactly. You can't take that. So, so what helped me was, so I was like, oh, okay. I understood what I was doing.
Yeah.
So once you get that awareness,
yes.
And then you're like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at. So then I was like, okay, as an exercise, I'm going to let myself feel this. I went to and I put 20-minute timer on my phone. I said, for 20 minutes, you're going to feel sorry for yourself.
Okay, good for you.
I said, you're going to have a pity. We're going to finish up this email. We're going to write everything all out. So for 20 minutes, I had fucking music going, and I was like, everybody hates me, and fuck the world. And, I had heavy metal music. I mean, I just had it. I just allowed myself. And then after the 20 minutes, I felt great. I was like, well, that was stupid.
Did you get McDonald's?
No, I didn't get any McDonald's.
Good, I'm good.
But I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So do the work to think.
But how did you feel? You got your 20 minutes done. Then what?
Then I logically, through thinking, logically and rationally, told myself how much of an idiot I was.
Okay.
And then it's amazing when you practice self-awareness, how quickly you can pull yourself out of a situation.
Correct.
Where it may last days somewhere, with somebody being a victim, that victim mentality, our years, our generations. But you can really, whatever situation you're in, and I'll be tested for far worse, and I have been in my life, but whatever situation you're in, with self-awareness, you can really switch a gear so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a matter of going to first, second, third, those supercars, how quick they have to. Now they said they can't even, the computers can shift even better than professional drivers.
They don't even
because it's so quick.
They don't even put standards in. They make them automatic now.
Yeah, it's like
you can't keep up.
Yeah. It's that fast, and then downshifting is like, so it's.
That was really good. You've been watching the Monaco Grand Prix?
Isn't there something coming up? Is it Indy or something? I don't know.
Is it the Indy 500?
Yeah. No, I just love the sound of the cars.
Oh, they're great.
I never knew, and I encourage people to. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's
I love
perfect.
that stuff.
I never knew how badass it was till you go. I've gone to NASCAR. I've gone to this is totally stupid conversation, but the dragsters.
Oh, drag
I didn't
strips.
know that they shook your body.
They're so loud. There's so much horsepower.
Yeah, it's
and
just
the chassis just warping, and the tires are essentially they're trying to catch up to one another.
Yeah.
Dude, it's nuts.
It's like physics at its best.
Yeah, it really is.
Extreme
Everything
physics.
about it.
So let's get into this, because I think that when somebody wants to quit, or they're in a freaked out situation, they're on the wall, they're in their office, having a pity party for themselves, whatever it may. This idea of thinking, and I kind of want to step out of this because people need to understand it and what the reason and why it happens.
Okay.
So let's start this. I'm gonna get a little scientific, because that's what we do at HDL. Every expression in nature is frequency range.
That's correct.
So when we look at the rainbow, the chakras, the 7, we know that there's we can look at each of those and see that there's frequencies. Science even confirms this.
Yes.
And you can talk about this, vibrations, frequencies, all that.
Right.
We see it in an oscilloscope.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Yeah, that's precisely correct. Everything in light is a wave. What is a wave? Wave's frequency, right? It's the plus and the minus. It's that sine wave. It's just moving up and down.
Well, isn't the colors even have higher frequencies? Like, I know, especially when you look at rainbows and chakras.
If you're looking at the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So there's a small portion of it, very small, which is our visible light, which gives us those colors that we see. There's also longer wavelengths, the longer ones like red, they're on the left-hand side, and then the really short, fast ones are over on the right. And all those things have their different colors, whether it's a color that can only be picked up by a special type of camera to view that radiation, or one that we see with our eyes, or one that you feel. Whether it's a tone or a color, they're all one and the same thing. They're all a function of that wave. So, because I want to lay a base here. So we have this: every expression in nature is frequency ranges. That's correct.
So we know that and we're into creational laws in nature. So we know there's frequency, vibration that's happening. Yeah. And that's a proven law. Science has proven that. Now we also know that there's solid, liquids, and gases.
Correct.
And each of those have shifting states.
Yeah, and plasma.
Yeah, well, we don't want to get into.
Yeah.
What do they call that with the universe and the plasma? Is it unlimited universe or something? They wrote a book. There's a guy that wrote a book on.
Right. I just know that Avi Loeb, who we have coming on, he specializes in non-terrestrial plasmas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So solid, liquid, gas, and they're shifting states. So you can take that boulder that you were on, you can melt it and extract minerals out of it.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah,
it was actually
metals.
That area, it's called Big Block, Tejeros, New Mexico. Is it was an old quarry. So, and you can pull things out of it. And if you go into the Smithsonian, and those museums everywhere, they'll show you the beautiful mineral, but then you got base granite rock that typically sits around it. But they haven't taken it off.
Or gold or whatever it may be. Yeah, it'll be you crack a rock open, and then so these shifting states, solid, liquid, gas, they're always shifting. We need to also understand that since we follow the principles of nature, we are in shifting states too.
We're constantly in a shifting state.
And we have a vibrational scale or in a frequency scale. So we can't, as nature shifts, so do we.
Well, think about when you get in your car and you go to work. You're shifting from one state to the next.
Right.
When you move your house, change your jobs, have a change of emotions.
Yes.
Eat a different food. All those things are different phase states, different changes that you're going through. Our weather, different change states. The bird's song, different change states. A caterpillar going into metamorphosis, turning into a butterfly, different phase change states. Isn't that amazing?
But don't you think that whenever you looked at something that may be as ruthless as turning something that's solid into liquid,
yeah,
that takes a lot of energy.
It does take a lot of energy.
And I'm thinking in a scientific manner, the pressure, the energy.
If you're if you're talking about solids into liquids, right? Go into a forge,
right?
Like a huge industrial forge. I mean, it takes a ton of energy to heat that steel up and get it into a liquid form so it can be poured into whatever cask. And then from that,
to make it malleable.
To make it malleable, right? But that's what needs to go on. You have to go through these phase changes. Everything does. Everything in this universe. Okay? Elements, atoms, waves, strings and string theory. All of that stuff has to go through changes. Our sun goes through changes. Our planet goes through changes, different phase states. But through that is where this learning begins to happen. There's a lot of energy expenditure that happens in these changes.
Right.
But they're required to happen. That is the constant, movement. That's the constant interchange, interaction, constant cause and effect of creation itself.
And I was at the airport 2 days ago or a day ago, whatever, I don't remember. But I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting in a restaurant, and I'm looking out at everybody. And I had gotten there early because there was traffic, so I wanted to make sure I had gotten there early, so I went to eat. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching people, for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I was waiting for my flight. And it was amazing how many people were stressed out and angry. Like husband and wife yelling at each other, yelling at kids because they won't put their mask on properly, and everybody's freaked out about which kind of give kids a pass. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
If they get COVID, it's not,
pretty robust.
Yeah, and we're in a tube at 30,000 feet going how many 600, 700 miles an hour with air recirculating.
420.
Everybody's
if you got the jet
get
stream, you're about 515.
Yeah, everybody's gonna get the COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. We had a completely packed plane, like every seat. So, but I was watching all these people, and I'm thinking, we've progressed as monkeys to this point, to where I'm sitting in a restaurant before I wait to go on this tube that's going to be flying me in the sky. But this tube happens to be the absolute safest way to travel.
And it's the thinnest piece of metal you will ever sit in. Your car metal is far thicker than that plane.
But it's not like we have to wait outside in the heat or in the cold for an hour for this thing to show up.
No.
We're actually sitting in restaurants, and we have air conditioning all around us. And I have somebody serving me coffee, and and I just thought, and I was like, why am I or any of these people? Because who I am is a reflection of you. So our law of unity.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm getting angry at that lady, then that's getting angry at myself.
Yeah.
So I began to look at this, and I was just like, why are we so ungrateful? How grateful is this that I can be back here in Albuquerque in 3 hours from Seattle?
That's amazing.
No one ever, 100 years ago, no one would hardly make, unless you're Lewis and Clark, most people stayed within 10 miles, 20 miles, maybe 100 miles?
Maybe 50 miles.
Yeah.
Maybe. If you're too far away from a water resource, people are like, fuck it, it's too far away.
Yeah, and a lot of people died on their homestead. Once they got their homestead, they stayed there, worked on a farm 7 days a week.
That's why they have so many
and then
graves.
Died in 40, 45.
Family graveyard.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So it's like, I know biologically, in the evolution sense, we're designed to, like yesterday is that situation that you were in yesterday is perfect for you because you need that stress in your life.
I do.
Because we need the running from the cheetah.
Yeah.
So we have to put ourselves in it's really, to get into flow states, it's really good to put yourself in life and death situations. Hopefully you're smart about it.
No, you're right about that, because when I'm climbing the wall,
you're not thinking of anything else.
I don't think of anything else other than the fact that I have a 1/4 inch to land the tops of my 2 fingers on and hold 187 pounds of my body. That's what I get. Limestone's slippery. It sweats in the heat. You know what I mean? That's all I get. If I don't clip in at the right height and actually make that, I deck. It's a thing where it's called you hit the ground. There's so much slack that's in the line that has to be there in order for me to move up the wall.
Yeah, my friend broke his leg that way.
Yeah, so you got to be like, I can't think about anything else.
Right.
This is my focus. This is a very meditative moment for me. This is all I need to focus on. It teaches you an immense amount of focus.
Yeah, it's like whenever, we have the SR-71 and these old planes
don't say
here.
that word.
But the test pilots back in the day, like Chuck Yeager and all them.
Oh, yeah.
He just passed away, so he had to have been like close to 100 or something. But
one of the SR-71 pilots over here in New Mexico, great story, right? Mm-hmm. They're going out doing a test flight. And the SR-71, for whatever technical malfunction, goes into a flat spin, starts to rip apart. Okay. These guys eject out of it. They hit the ground on the middle of this like cattle field. And these 2 farmers are sitting out there standing next to their truck smoking cigarettes. And they watch these guys come down in parachutes, right? And they see this burning ball of fire in the sky. And they're like, hey, how you doing there? Everything going all right? You doing another one of them tests for Kirtland Air Force Base? Like that's what they're asking.
Right.
And they're like, yeah. And
they had to carry down a conversation. Everything was good.
They're like, do you need a lift? And they're like, absolutely. Well, the cattle farmer had so much space on his ranch, he had a helicopter. He said, how about I just fly you back to the base? But these guys, like, think about it. They're up there testing things that are completely unknown. It's brand new.
Well, how many test pilots have died?
Oh, I know. So
Hundreds,
many.
probably. Yeah. So, I mean, but what draws us, and I don't want to get too off of this, but what draws us to that moment of being in those perfect states of, and they talk about it being flow, like, a Navy SEAL and you're with a team and then everybody, or let's make it more, you're in an EDM concert and you see somebody I've seen this at EDM concerts, somebody's dancing the same dance as this group over here and they don't even know each other.
They don't know. Yeah.
So this collective consciousness begins to happen. And we can see that, SEAL teams, I'm saying that. You got 5 or 6 guys and they're just reading each other's mind and knowing this guy's going to do this guy's going to do this. And like you said on the wall, they're not thinking of anything else. They're pure focus, pure intent.
That flow state right there it's really interesting because you know what the end goal is. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows. Whether you're at the EDM, it's like the end goal is just to enjoy yourselves, be a part of the community. That's right. It. Feel the music. That is the albeit end goal. When I'm on the wall, get to the top. That's it. One focus. I'm not worried about food, nothing. Zilch. I don't care if my hands start to bleed as I climb. It doesn't matter. You have one thing, and you're not considering all those other things that are happening, right? But there are mechanics that are going on. But when you're in that flow state and you achieve something that was such a deep, seated, intended focus, and when you hit it, something changes inside of you. So if you are a test pilot and you're like, I'm going to get this thing up to 80,000 feet, that is my focus. I've been flying every day in my life. I know the instruments. I know how they work. It's like driving a car. That's the subconscious part. The question is, what happens when I get up to the unknown zone? What happens when I actually reach there? I've had all this immense focus the entire way up, and now I'm here. And that there's a dopamine hit that is insane. When I'm climbing and I'm doing something extremely difficult, like very difficult, and when you hit it, that rush, you would never even be able to find it in a casino, all right? And you know what this rush feels like. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And I think that flow state and hitting that rush is something that you also want to keep doing over and over and over again.
Yeah, you want to make sure that that you're putting yourself in those situations, because what I was thinking of is, why are people, even though there's restaurants, air conditioning, the safest way to fly these tubes, why are people so disgruntled in that moment? Because our society, especially now, is seeking something that we really don't want. And nature doesn't want it either. Nature, if it's a weakness, and this is what we're going to get into, and that is comfort.
It is comfort.
The minute you have comfort in nature, you die.
That's precisely correct. That's why retirement's scary.
That's why people die in 5 years.
That's why they die so early when they're in retirement, because now you have, I don't need any more catalysts. I want only comfort. Mm-hmm. I don't want new wavelengths. I don't want new phase state changes. I just want to stay right here. Well, in that stagnation is where things die.
Yes.
Thoughts die. The body dies. Things fester. It turns into that swamp. Comfort. And when you're born into it and you live in comfort all the time, the second you get an ounce of discomfort, you blow it out of proportion, and it's like you don't know how to handle it because you've only known comfort. You've only known safety. But what about people that don't have a pillow to sleep on, that use their own arm? All you really need in this life is your own arm to lay your head on the ground, and have something over your head so that if it does rain, it doesn't soak you. That's all you really need. But we're like upset that our coffee doesn't come to us on time, or that a kid's mask is on upside down, right? Or we're worried about someone else, what someone's going to say because I'm walking my dog barks, and I'm embarrassed that I can't control my dog. But the fact is, it's a fucking dog. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the reason you're getting out of control is because you're worried about how you're being perceived by everybody else, because you live in this state of comfort, in this idealized sense of control that truly doesn't even exist. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And so I want to get into air, fire, water, earth.
Okay, let's go for it.
Because I think when we look at this macro view of understanding, and this, when we start getting into air, fire, water, and earth, and I want to make sure people understand this. Some of this I got from Paul Chek, which we've talked about, but he got into this, and I think it's really, really good. So let's start with earth first. So earth is the home. Without earth, you have no existence.
That's good. That's correct.
So I want people to understand this because, so when we look at science and we look at our science and we see, and I'm gonna go right into it. This shocked me. If you take all the industrial chemicals that are on the landmass right now, and they were allowed to leach into the ocean, we have separation from it. If it leached into the ocean, it would literally kill every single thing that was in the ocean. So we've created humans. We've created this. And so as climate control, as we get warmer and warmer, we're going to end up, I mean, this is like, I began to think about this. It's like, okay, we will elevate a foot up. Well, then how much percent of the earth is underwater? Oh, okay. Well, how many chemicals did we just release into the ocean?
That's correct.
We global warming. Yeah, we're almost ocean, but we're just gonna be just one body of water that has nothing in it. Maybe algae.
Let me give a great example. This is fantastic. The Manhattan Project. They're still cleaning up radioactive material in New York State.
Yes.
People are like, oh, Manhattan Project out here in New Mexico. No, New York State's a mess. You would never even know. They're still cleaning it up.
There's parts of Eastern Washington, I know Hannaford and all that, where they still have you can't go there. You could take a Geiger and it'll.
And if anyone wants to know, a Geiger counter is something that measures radiation. What happens is the isotopes are passing through this rod, and every time it hits it, it sends off an electrical signal, creating a noise, and this Geiger counter gives you range. But here's those chemicals. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is fantastic. Where did those chemicals come from? They didn't come out of thin air. We synthesized them. Mm-hmm. We took the material and the resources on this planet that creation has allotted, and we synthesized them into something that has very, negative coherence.
Right.
It's actually non-coherent with nature. It's actually against a natural wavelength.
What's even worse than that, because we took explosives that we made in World War I.
Yeah.
And it's called NPK. And we turned around and said, hey, this stuff, if we put it in our soil, it works for fertilizer.
Yeah.
So we literally have, and they were talking about how many metric tons is happening every day.
Of the NPK.
Yeah, of the NPK. So literally we took something that makes it makes our bombs, it makes explosions, and we've turned it into fertilizer, and we're feeding our food. Think about this.
Didn't Ted Kaczynski use fertilizer?
Yes, yeah.
Gasoline and fertilizer, I mean, I'm not to give anyone any ideas, but you can make a bomb out of that.
And when you look at the military-industrial complex, and you see that coming on the scene, after World War I and then World War II, and then it was in full. I mean, presidents were even warning about it. Now you can understand, let's take this stuff that's explosives. We can make a lot of money. Let's turn it into fertilizer.
What about potassium fluoride?
Yeah, exactly.
That was used in the process of making, it's a waste product of the process of making nuclear weapons. But what do you do with sodium fluoride? It's a waste product.
Yeah.
There's papers on this, and they said, well, why don't we use it in dentistry?
Yes.
What do we do with all this waste product? Can we use it to actually, fund something else? Oh, wait a minute. Does this strengthen the teeth? What a fucking scam. There's tons of papers on it, But here's that, too. This is really interesting. We have a choice to use these elements and these things that are out here in nature, but we synthesize them for things that harm us and harm the environment.
Right.
But if left alone, they're just doing their thing. Nature maintains that natural balance. But when we begin to synthesize things into such a concentrate that we can just throw stuff completely off of balance, it's ridiculous. Like, do people even know where plastics come from? To how a plastic is even made? A polycarbonate, multi-carbon. Okay, it comes from dead stuff that has been compacted over millions of years. That's creating this oil that's turned into a petroleum product, right? And then you got your plastic bottle. So I'm taking all this dead stuff, this anaerobic stuff, and I'm putting it into a bottle, and then I want to put my water in there, and I want to store it in something that was essentially dead. I have a synthesized dead thing that I'm storing stuff in. Think about that.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that on air, fire, water, earth, so we'll get into that on water.
Sorry,
but
I'm not trying
no.
to
You're so we have to understand when we look at our science, majority of our science, especially when it comes to how we've evolved, is science that destroys. We have to come to that conclusion.
Did you come to this conclusion on your own?
Yes.
So this is funny. I've always said that we've come to a place in society where we're all about division.
Right.
Nuclear technology is about fission. It's about splitting the atom. Marketing regimens online. It's about putting you in a bucket, splitting you, separating you apart. Go to a doctor's office. Let's isolate where the disease, what the things are. It's all about the separation. There's nothing holistic. Science is not about bringing things together. It's always been about separation. Think about politics. Separation. Cold War. Separation.
But because I want people to understand, you need to do the work to think. And in these situations, there's a reason why, because your body's reacting to, in a biological sense. When you have these industrial chemical complexes, what I call it, pesticides, for instance, neurogenic, estrogenic, and glyphosate.
Okay.
So you have those three things that are happening. So neurogenic, they decided to do the same thing. They're like, oh, nerve agents. So nerve agents that were created in a little bit before World War I, and Hitler hated him. He was gassed whenever he was
when he was in the trenches.
Yeah. So he didn't use that. They said if World War II, if the Nazis would have used,
it would have won in a second.
They would have won in a second. Yeah. But chemical warfare he wasn't about. So neurogenic. So you have that attacks. So what they decided to do was, this won't hurt humans if we do it a smaller, lower dosage, but it will hurt the nervous system of the insect and kill it. So you have this military industrial complex building these, not just NPK, the fertilizer, which if you give, there's an old adage down south that to make a pit bull, when you know how they used to do, and they still do kind of pit bull fights, to make a pit bull more aggressive and insane, you fed it gunpowder, you mix gunpowder in its food. So, but so our plants are given NPK explosives.
Sounds like that cocaine.
We have these pesticides, like estrogenic raises your estrogen levels through the roof.
Correct.
So if you're eating plants that are not organic, or you're like these, you see these young kids, that aren't these boys. It's taking before they hit puberty. They're like 21, 22, 23. So you need to have testosterone. Not estrogen.
No, you got to balance it.
So, yeah, you have to have that
but
balance.
when you have a synthetic estrogen coming in?
Yes.
People are like, oh, yeah, if you're eating plants like soy, no, that's phytoestrogen. That's not how that works. That's a plant-based estrogen. Your body does not even look at that chemical the same. But if you look at an estrogen that's created synthetically,
yes, yeah.
That'll throw your body off?
Yeah,
that'll give you gynecomastia.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're like, and that it'll cause you to sweat too much, and you go through different phase changes in your body at a rate that you shouldn't be going through that.
So the thing that not only are we destroying the earth, we're destroying our bodies.
Correct.
We're doing the same thing with the food that we're eating. And all of this is science.
Every single bit of it's been science. What we say is also top tier science.
Yeah. So I want people to get this, because it's like, you're like, well, I'm feeling depressed. There's a reason why you're that way. There's a reason why we have situations in our life that we're seeing right now, especially with the population. And when we look at air, fire, water, earth, we go back to nature, we can clearly see outcomes.
Yeah.
And they just did a study, and they were trying to find dangerous compounds in babies. So when they would take the blood test, there was this organization, got permission from the parents and all that stuff. But they would take the regular blood after what was left over, this company would, and then they would test it and see how many dangerous toxic compounds are in a brand new baby.
Wow.
So it's first blood given.
Yeah.
So they tested in different, not different countries, but in different hospitals here. So they have every baby had over 200 toxic chemicals, compounds in their body.
That's horrible.
Being born.
That's horrible.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we're having mental issues
and all that other stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Why there's problems when, the baby's actually in the womb with its development. Beyond the fact of people having their own genetic issues,
yes,
known or unknown, what about all the externalities that we're injecting into our body? Do you know how many pharmaceuticals have to be taken out of the public waterways? Pharmaceuticals. It's a mess. All that stuff has to get
Well,
filtered
because
out.
every time somebody puts their pills down.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
about,
they were saying they had there's a cool study on that too. They were talking about all the different, like in New York City and LA, how much antidepressant is in the water.
I know. And then
Because people are just,
antidepressant, cocaine, all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it gets all in the water. So we're at 40 minutes. So we're going to do a part 2 because we still haven't got to water, fire, air.
No. So, all right.
Gotta
So
hit the elements.
We'll be back.